God's answer to poverty. In 1 Kings 17, Elisha, by God's prompting, prophesied a severe drought to Ahab, king of Israel. Ahab and his wife Jezebel were Baal worshippers, and possibly the most wicked of all kings of Israel. Elisha worshipped Jehovah. The drought would be severe, 3 years without dew or rain. Baal was believed to be the god of weather. So when Elijah announced the drought in the name of the God of heaven, it was the beginning of a showdown. As a result of Elijah's obedience, he became a fugitive. God instructed Elijah to hide in the Kerith ravine, where he can drink from the brook and eat from the ravens that God would send him. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and evening. At some point later, the brook dried up and the ravens stopped coming. And at this point in our lives, we can remember times when we thought God called us somewhere, but then we were left feeling somewhat destitute. Can you imagine what Elijah must have been thinking as he watched his provision dry up? Elijah was right where God asked him to be. Elijah served a God who sees. So the Lord instructed Elijah to go at once to a widow in Zarephath and stay there, because he had directed a widow to supply him with food. Elijah traveled to the town gate where he found the widow gathering sticks. The first thing he did was ask for a little water in a jar and a morsel of bread. The widow replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home, make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." God sent Elijah, a man who was desperate, hungry, and on the run, a fugitive, to a woman who was desperately poor and starving to death. This widow must have had her own encounter, her own memory of the true Israelite God. Otherwise, Elijah is just another vagrant wolf using religion to serve himself. Elijah's faith was on point. He asked the widow for an act of goodwill, a kindness that required her faith. He asked her to care for him with the last of her ingredients. And after that, she could prepare something for her son and herself. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: "The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." The implication: if God didn't do what Elijah said he would, her and her son would have nothing, their last meal already a memory. The widow did not respond to Elijah in bitterness, and she did not respond in the same way as the men responded to Jesus in Luke. She did not say, "Let me first." She did as Elijah told her. She remembered God with uncommon faith, and Elijah, sent by God, walked into her faith. God trusted Elijah to stand in faith, as much as he trusted the widow to stand in hers. Elijah's obedience and faith saved the widow. The widow's obedience and faith saved Elijah. God is always showing his vulnerability by using the weaknesses of humanity to reveal himself. He draws people to himself and asks them to meet the needs of the other. Neither had provision apart from the other. What you have is enough, because the God who feeds widows and sparrows is with you. He is walking, working, and multiplying our meager morsels. He also works in the image of the glory and unity of his divine nature. He calls you to give them something to eat. In Christ, you are more than enough.